When it comes to choosing what games we're going to platinum, we've naturally got to be a tad bit selective to make the most from our limited time. Therefore, we know a game is truly special to us if we'll devote the time to do it all over again. So let's take a gander at 7 of the games from my list that I would do for a second time. I'm kicking this off with the conclusion to perhaps the best franchise in gaming history, Kojima's Metal Gear Solid 4. As a die-hard lifelong fan of the series, this entry manages to hit every single emotion, from the excitement of battling in actual Metal Gears, to the sadness of seeing an aged Snake struggling through the battlefield, to the nostalgic nods at the lineage of the series, all backed up with extremely solid gameplay. Trophy-wise, the game can sometimes be intense, but there's something particularly satisfying about mastering a Metal Gear Solid game to squeeze out those also sorted after big boss ranks. And speaking of satisfaction, I don't think I've played an RPG that gave me more of that than The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. There's something uniquely magical about Geralt's universe that makes it so captivating to me. It's almost like a fusion of Supernatural and Star Wars, set within a medieval landscape. If you're going for a single platinum run, as I did, you're almost forced to play to your strengths as a Witcher, as Deathmarch will ensure you can't just run into a random hunt swinging and come out the victor. Oh no, you'll need to investigate your prey, research its strengths and weaknesses, and then harness that knowledge with spells, potions, oils and bombs to come out with a brand new trophy. The game is quite the grind in some aspects, especially in regards to the infamous Gwent, but if you enjoy it half as much as I did, you'll have no problem getting lost within this rich and beautiful world filled with deep companions and its characters. But it's time to shit some bricks next with the iconic survival horror masterpiece, my beloved, it's Dead Space. Survival horror is a genre that's quite crowded these days, but the developers managed to produce a sparkling unicorn to trample above the rest. Now admittedly it's a grotesque PTSD-inducing unicorn, but hey. It's loosely based on the niche cult classic movie Event Horizon starring Sam Neill, and yes, I'm talking about that one from Jurassic Park. You actually follow the engineer Isaac Clarke as you respond to an SOS from the corporate mining ship, the USG Ishimura, and as you'd expect, shit and a whole boatload of other bodily fluids hit the fan pretty fast, thrusting you into a world of horrendous creatures that even John Carpenter would be jealous of. The trophies take a hint from the Resident Evil franchise and make it a fun challenge to platinum, such as finishing the game with just your plasma colour, surviving impossible mode, and a host of others, such as trying out every weapon to get the most out of the visceral combat, pun intended. Oh, and side note, collectibles are actually useful in audio and text logs, giving valuable exposition. You just love to see it. But let's take a step back from all the horror for a second with what I consider the gold standard for superhero games. It's the incredible Marvel's Spider-Man. We're kinda spoiled for choice when it comes to superhero games these days, with Deadpool, Guardians of the Galaxy, and of course, the awesome, the event... Nah, let's scrap that last one. But honestly, Insomniac's Spidey just manages to hit differently. It's a super chill platinum experience that you can choose to make as hard or as easy as you please. There are Taskmaster challenges to test the range of your capabilities as the webhead, criminals to hunt down throughout the streets of New York, and of course the highly praised, useful and easy to locate collectibles that not only provide some neat bite-sized pieces of lore, but help upgrade your gadgets and unlock new suits along the way. Combined with a city that's a joy to swing through, the epic boss fights with the smooth as butter combat that goes alongside them, and of course that emotional rollercoaster of a story. What more could you ask for as a superhero fan? Let's move on to the sole reason I bought a PlayStation Vita, the game that made me feel like a kid again playing Pokemon in my bed. It's Persona 4 Golden. Having never played a Persona title before, I wasn't really sure what to expect, but before I knew it, I was thrust into controlling every aspect of the social life of the protagonist during his high school year. I'd have to choose which characters I'd spend time with to develop their relationships, and which books, jobs or hobbies I spend time on to boost my ever so important stats. This level of time management felt so fresh and addictive, I was finding myself constantly saying, one more day before going to sleep every single night and failing miserably. It rocks classic turn-based combat to a funky Japanese pop soundtrack with a whole host of personas you need to collect and fuse, not to mention a story you just can't peel your eyes away from. That's why Persona 4 is more than worth a second visit. We're heading into penultimate territory next with Aliens Fireteam Elite. It's a fairly infamous title you've probably heard of by now. Fireteam Elite is the intense third-person squad survival shooter that's sure to test the bounds of both your skill and your friendships. The gameplay loop is rather simple in nature, yet at the same time it's strangely addictive. You have a range of classes you need to master, from your bog standard gunner to the invaluable technician and their wee turrets. Mine was called Archie, the cute little bastard he was. There are a bunch of miscellaneous trophies and an arsenal of weapons you need to max out, but you'll get all of these on the way to completing the game on insane difficulty, a mode that will test the very depths of your reflexes, your nerves and strategic battle sense when everything goes tits up. And last but certainly not least, it's possibly the best remake ever to grace our systems. It's Resident Evil 2. No matter how many times I revisit Raccoon City, I've always managed to get surprised by this intense survival horror experience. The intense fear of being hunted by Mr. X through the hallways, or the sheer panic of accidentally stumbling headfirst into a liquor, it's just sheer horror bliss. You've got plenty of creativity in how you play this masterpiece, but as always, the challenges and therefore the trophies themselves really help the Resident Evil series shine. You've got your quasi-speedrun, a hardcore playthrough for both characters, and the S ranks to earn, just to name a few. But unlike last time, I'm not going to be a self-imposed wimp and use the infinite weapons for the hardcore runs. This time, I'm going to experience what survival horror truly means, and I can't bloody wait.